We're going to try something different this episode. Rather than walk through a level beat by beat, we're going to take a look at an element of design that a game does well, using an individual stage as an example of that successful design in motion. The stage in question is Best Original Score, housed in the world of the Desert of Dijiridoos, and the game is Rayman Origins. Ubisoft's 2011 reboot of its Rayman franchise represents the start of one of the most critically, if not commercially, successful brand relaunches in video game history. While sales were lackluster, the game would go on to spawn a direct sequel for consoles and handhelds, as well as 2 mobile tie-in games. One major point of common praise went to Origins' presentation, and rightfully so. The game was the first released under Ubisoft's UbiArt framework in-house graphics engine, and it looks stunning from the first screenshot onward. Lush backgrounds, cartoonish character designs, fluid animations, Origins still looks fantastic. But the art direction isn't just there to look pretty. Today's episode is going to zero in on some of the animation work done in Origins, and demonstrate why enemy reactions serve a practical purpose beyond adding to the game's goofy Saturday morning cartoon style. Our focus is on 4 bird enemy types, 2 of a harmful, damaging variety, and 2 of a more helpful sort. They aren't the only enemy types encountered in this level, but they are the most expressive, and they are all first assembled together in the second level of Rayman Origins' second world. Let's start with our aggressive enemies. We weren't able to find much in the way of official names for Origins' bestiary, so for the sake of this video we'll nickname them Redbird, like in the Rayman wiki, and Spikebird, which is simple and straightforward enough. Both foes represent slightly different approaches to the same design goal: how to distinguish dangerous enemies immediately, succinctly, and without words. If you look at the enemy NPCs in Origins, you will notice that they fall into 2 distinct camps: those that look happy or pleased to be in Rayman's path, and those that want absolutely nothing to do with him or the player. Red and Spikebird, like most aggressive enemies, are visibly in the latter camp. Approaching them without any interaction, players can inspect 2 distinct sets of idle animations. Redbird is a tightly wound ball of frustration. Its body posture is compact, huddled in on itself, as if the little bird was trying to shut out the rest of the world. Its eyes are closed tight, like it was squeezing them against bright sunlight. And if Redbird looks uncomfortable on the ground, you can almost pity the poor creature when it's in flight. When sets of Redbird enemies are placed in the player's path vertically, providing obstacles that move up and down the screen, the sad creatures look even more agitated. If a cartoon bird could have flop sweat, Redbird's brow would be drenched. This enemy type's wings animate in a staggered pattern, its body pulled upward a half-second or so slower than its head, as if it's too heavy to be doing this. Its descent emphasizes said weight, its bottom drooping like a water droplet hanging from a faucet. Its eyes are always half open, squinting in strain. In flight as well as on the ground, Redbird just looks plain unhappy. But if the player gets close enough to trigger an attack, Redbird goes positively berserk. Its genuinely curved outline gets spiky, feathers ruffled out of place, and its beak opening to show a set of dagger-like teeth. Redbird then leaps sharply in the air, much faster than its haggard flight animation, flapping erratically. Its eyes dart wide open, giving the bereaved bird a manic energy here compared to its disgruntled appearance elsewhere. Where Redbird is frantic, Spikebird is more apprehensive. This fits in well with its more singular use as an obstacle. Unlike the ground-to-air missile of annoyed rage that is Redbird, Spike here can float Rayman and company to death, aided by its spiky circumference. As such, it comes across less agitated at the player and more anxious of them. A spiky circle with a beak, Spikebird bobs in midair and damages the player upon their landing on it. This enemy type has a limited range of movement, which is highlighted by its rapidly flapping wings, humorously undersized compared to its bulbous middle. But it's its eyes and beak that give it its apprehensive personality. While most enemies in Rayman Origins will turn around to face the player depending on which side of the screen they are on, Spikebird follows Rayman and company with eyes only, always wide open and frequently blinking. This bird type's beak is also permanently closed in a frown of sorts. Like Redbird, Spike has the demeanor of a creature that would prefer to be pretty much anywhere else right now. On the flip side, both in an aesthetic and mechanical sense, are 2 helpful birds seen in unison for the first time here in Best Original Score. The prominently beaked Notebird, and its squishy-looking compatriot the Bumper Notebird, are in many ways the inverse of the 2 aggressive enemy types we've gone over so far. Without going too much into color theory, which could be its own episode, the light green coloration of both notebirds is more approachable than the sharp red that coats redbird and accentuates the spikes and beak of spikebird. From a mechanical standpoint, these two creatures serve as helpful limited-use bounce platforms. Both the note and bumper note birds perch on note staffs, the line segments found in music charts, which are here used to distinguish platforming segments within the level, and they can be landed on to provide a bounce to the player's jump. While not all players will notice it, these jumps are indeed limited, that limit expressed by the note and bumper note bird dropping to a line lower on the note staff with each bounce. Should a player exhaust all available jumps, the note bird will drop off screen, presumably die, and respawn from the top and land on the topmost line on the note staff. Okay, hold on, real quick aside here. So, we all know that Rayman Origins borrows heavily from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, right? Right. One homage I don't think a lot of people noticed, and I certainly didn't notice until I started looking at these animations for this episode, is the relationship of the notebirds here to our good old pal Yoshi. Watch here as this notebird drops from the bottom line of the note staff it's on. Okay, there we go. It's shuddering from the impact of Rayman's ungrateful feet there, yep. It is pitching backwards. Its eyes are closed almost serenely, like it's accepted its fate. And there it goes, dropping like a stone off-screen to its demise. I ask you, fair viewer, how long will we go on sacrificing our living platforms like this? How long? Anyway, back to the animation side of things. As grumpy as our enemy birds were around Rayman, both benevolent notebird types here seem genuinely happy to be here. The parrot-like notebird in particular has a sort of side grin going on in the opening part of their mouths before the split into the beak. While our notebirds here have blinking and general happy bobs in their idle animations, it's in their landing animation cycles that we see them at their most expressive and functional. Both birds visually express their purpose as platforms and bounce pads by how they land on note staffs, be it by dropping to a lower line or by first perching on the staff after the player activates it via button trigger. The notebird's beak, which is colored a noticeably lighter green to the rest of its body, hangs upward slightly as it lands. It is pretty much exactly how the bird animates in response to the player jumping on its beak to bounce upward, but by including it at the end of the bird's landing animation, players can see that feature hinted at before they make an attempt at a jump. Despite having a design just as circle-dominated as Spikebird, Bumper Notebird here seems much more content with its position. Its purpose as a living platform, like the Notebird, is highlighted through animation and shading tactics. When the Bumper Notebird lands on the note staff, its gigantic head jiggles, giving it a sense of bounciness. Its bulbous cranium also has a white highlight in a sort of bean shape, cueing players in to the best spot to aim for when landing. Each of these four birds expresses itself in unique, dramatic ways in their idle, combat, and movement animations. This is both to distinguish themselves from the environments and each other, and subtly remind the player of any mechanical function they may have. The outlandish, exaggerated animations, combined with their bright, distinguishing color palettes, also help them pop out on screen. Rayman Origins was a game that could be played solo, or with up to 4 co-op partners, often at a very fast speed, making the need for expressive design paramount when things got hectic. Lightly colored and happy? Useful. Darkly colored and grumpy? Dangerous. Bouncy? You can probably bounce on that. Spiky? You probably shouldn't. Vibrant coloration and distinct animation, working together to keep players visually cued into their surroundings despite speed and screen clutter. Rayman Origins is a gorgeous game, but those looks aren't just for show. But if we're really being honest, we're just glad they got rid of those damn rabbits.
We still control the universe. It's God. What? The stick of truth. The elves got it. That was your one goddamn job, Clyde! To guard the stick of fucking truth!